The rise of super-fast VC-backed BFT protocols in both their design choices and token distribution models is leading to the erosion of decentralization in this industry. Large pre-mines, over-the-counter insider deals and significant token inflation is funding feeless centralized blockchains with smart on- and off-chain marketing initiatives. Through the financing of mainstream crypto media, key opinion leaders, social media influencers, and even fake on-chain activity, these chains are able to dictate the narrative and capture mainstream attention through sheer financial might. This is the blueprint for the ultimate fake it until you make it strategy. Selling out to corporations and facilitating one of the largest value extraction processes at the expense of users is now commonplace in crypto. However, the most important question is, can a truly decentralized people-run network still survive and thrive despite retail being aggressively directed toward more centralized corporate-owned blockchain ecosystems? This industry was founded upon the promise of decentralization, security, and ultra-inclusivity for good reason. The very concept of mass adoption or mass participation and long-term value of a network, in my view, will be a consequence of these critical user-empowering characteristics being at the core of the blockchain. Fundamentally, this is why it's Cardano versus the rest of crypto. Welcome back to Sapien, the channel for in-depth coverage and breakdowns of the most disruptive technology that's challenging the economic, political, and social systems of the world. This video is brought to you in partnership with the Cardano fan stake pool, so if you find value in the content and want to help support this effort, please consider delegating to the Cardano stake pool ticker CRFA. Full details are linked in the video description. In crypto, the narrative has become who's winning now and based on a very particular set of metrics. Today, focus is rarely applied to the significance of solving the trilemma, demonstrating staying power, and ultimately the success of a blockchain in not losing or disappearing into obscurity. When I say Cardano versus the rest of crypto, I'm talking as much about its own design choices technologically as I am about how it stands in opposition to the model powerful corporate entities are choosing to use as a mechanism to extract value from this industry, leaving large parts of retail burnt with a distorted perception of what this technology was originally developed to achieve. Sure, if it's only about making money, anyone is free to dance with the devil and hope that you're on the winning side of the zero-sum game. But this is the difference between chains where users are adding value versus only extracting it. Corporate-owned networks propped up with huge pre-mines and over-the-counter deals may have significant amounts of capital to play with, which is no doubt capturing short-term growth, but it's not sustainable for creating valuable users long-term, and in my opinion, only contributes to the crypto is a scam narrative. VC capital was never going to go on board with the development arc of Cardano because it's way too technologically and socially ambitious. VCs don't afford you the time needed to execute a project and vision this big. Instead, they encourage the move fast mentality that almost always guarantees them a short-term return. As a result, decentralized people-run networks like Cardano may have far less capital and corporate handshakes, but offer a completely different value proposition, building a culture that's not solely here to extract but contribute to its wider success and adoption. This is what delivers that organic growth in the network effect we observed originally in Bitcoin. This kind of growth has substance and long-term is way more valuable. As a blockchain user, have you ever questioned if you're a user and an owner, or just a user being bought and owned? Convincing people today that decentralization is important is difficult, but it really shouldn't be. The centralization of power to create short-term incentives and hype are great marketing strategies, but it's decentralization, security, best-in-class technology, and an organically grown community that would determine long-term success. The rise of VC-backed BFT protocols sacrificing decentralization for fast finality and ease of development is no doubt dominating mainstream crypto today. But effectively, what we have in many cases is layer 2 solutions masquerading as robust layer 1 blockchains. Now, BFT protocols do have their advantages, so it's no surprise that we see blockchains like Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, and Sui utilizing this approach to consensus. For BFT, the main advantages are fast finality, and it protects well against double spend. Consequently, for developers, it's much easier to work on these protocols. For example, there is no need for certain code to keep cross-checking the finality. This is extremely useful for developing financial applications. Fast finality removes the need for this type of clunky code when developing, attracting more developers to build and deliver user applications to market faster. However, BFT protocols are sacrificing decentralization and security for speed, heavily centralizing power over the network. This not only goes against the original promise of crypto, but if you want to handle billions of dollars of value, surely the highest security guarantees of the network is required. In BFT protocols, if 33% of nodes act maliciously, the system can suffer attacks leading to liveness issues or capture. BFT protocols often require nodes to be known and trusted to some extent, making them more vulnerable to collusion among a small number of participants. In effect, 33% of actors can make a coalition to bring down the network Solana style over and over again, rendering the chain unusable. While liveness issues today on Solana are more likely to be as a result of the move fast and break things approach rather than malicious attacks, effectively, users are lucky somewhat honest actors are currently controlling the chain. BFT protocols are seemingly solving this security issue in the short term with the structure of their tokenomics and through the powerful entities backing them. Before the token is publicly traded, if you have a 70% plus pre-mine, allocate huge amounts to insiders, cheap over-the-counter deals for VCs and key opinion leaders, you can create a small centralized trusted committee that runs the network validation in a permissioned environment. This leads to a small consortium of players centralizing the network operations. Their stake and power is so large that it's they themselves who control any network attacks. Centralizing power to a small group of entities means they control network operations, development, and market sentiment. Again, decentralization prevails here. But the real issue is, what if some other player enters the arena, acquires more than 33% of stake, and becomes a thug with intentions to maliciously attack the network? Liveness issues leading to the network being brought down every day, making it unusable and inaccessible, is a very real possibility amongst these chains. Is this really your idea of a blockchain? Again, this is the difference between being a user and owner versus being a user that is owned. Running as a consortium only works until it doesn't anymore. If the blockchain you are using through its consensus protocol and token distribution model is highly centralized, then effectively it has an off switch. If this is the case, then at some point either the authorities or a malicious actor with enough resources will find it. Permissionless blockchains that in their consensus protocols, token distribution and governance models are decentralized are proven to be more reliable, accessible and secure. This is what will encourage much broader long-term participation in this space, as they are far more appealing and user-empowering characteristics for the masses. Cardano comes from the Bitcoin school of thinking when it comes to consensus protocols. Like Bitcoin, it achieves a 51% honest majority with its consensus protocol Ouroboros. While Nakamoto consensus suffers from slower finality, it excels when it comes to the security of the network. Cardano achieving Nakamoto consensus but with a proof of stake protocol has produced the highest minimum attack vector across all cryptocurrencies. With a malicious entity needing more than 51% of stake to attack the network, its well distributed 3000 plus stake pools securing it, and proven 100% uptime, Cardano is arguably the most robust and reliable blockchain network in existence. The security guarantees of Nakamoto consensus is where chains like Cardano and Bitcoin really stand out. When you consider Cardano's native assets, true non-custodial liquid staking, the introduction of on-chain governance, and most decentralized network validation industry-wide, on Cardano you are a user and owner of the system. Users on centralized chains like Solana and Sui are being fooled into thinking that they're on robust layer 1 blockchains, when in reality they're effectively on layer 2s that have given up on decentralization. The evidence shows Nakamoto consensus provides the highest security for layer 1 blockchain consensus. You can then develop layer 2 solutions, for example, where you maybe lower security to increase speed, ease of development and scalability. But we have to be honest, if the vision is to become a world financial operating system for billions or even trillions of dollars in value and transactions, the security of the network is of number one importance. It's far easier to attack, co-opt or capture a small centralized consortium than it is a globally distributed network of 3000 plus stake pools with the highest minimum attack vector in the entire space. The reality is, when it comes to real adoption of blockchain systems, trust me bro, you can safely transact in billions, it's just not going to cut it. This is why Cardano is closest to Bitcoin. Nakamoto consensus, UTXO, deflationary hard cap currency, high minimum attack vector, far more adversarial resistant, extremely decentralized. When you consider this with its programmability, upgradability, and now introduction of on-chain governance, Cardano is seemingly on its own path now, and a clear outlier for achieving long-term staying power. Cardano equals true ownership. You are a user and owner of the network. But this isn't to say that fast finality isn't important, and it's no surprise Cardano always had solutions for achieving faster finality in Nakamoto consensus in the original roadmap. This is the beauty of a blockchain built for upgradability, both in its design architecture and through its innovative hard fork combinator, a technology that enables the blockchain to carry out complex upgrades seamlessly while maintaining 100% uptime and no user disruption. As we have deep dived many times on this channel, Ouroboros, Cardano's consensus protocol, is a family of protocols that with each iteration adds new features and improvements to the blockchain. We recently covered Ouroboros Genesis, bringing Bitcoin level security to a proof-of-stake protocol. Ouroboros Peres, the next implementation which is actively being developed by IOG, would deliver 2 minutes finality. Simplified, it does this by enabling a sufficient number of nodes and their respective stakes to agree on the ledger's state through voting. This will significantly reduce transaction finality time and lower the risk of large rollbacks after just a few blocks. I'll be doing a full video on the impact of Ouroboros Peres and Leos and how this will give birth to the second generation of Nakamoto consensus in an upcoming episode. The introduction of Peres and Leos is another nod to Cardano actively trying to solve the blockchain trilemma, achieve Nakamoto consensus with fast finality and enormous speed, scale a decentralized and secure blockchain. Of course, you cannot achieve each aspect of the trilemma to the fullest, as this is impossible. There will always be trade-offs, but if you know how the saying goes, you reach for the stars but you might land on the moon. The problems Cardano is trying to solve are that hard others do not even try or have given up. But aside from the BFT and Nakamoto consensus debate, there is a much more problematic trend developing that's responsible for driving the narrative in crypto today. It's the ultimate fake it until you make it strategy. What we are seeing is the same capital rotating between all of these VC BFT chains. They almost always go for an inflationary model, large pre-mines or both, creating a Web 2.5 environment, posing as fast decentralized blockchains. The capital raised as a result of these pre-mines, over-the-counter deals and token inflation is actively funding the build-out of these Web 2.5 like ecosystems. This is then used to fund powerful on and off-chain marketing initiatives, fund the major crypto media outlets, key opinion leaders and YouTubers to hype up the tokens and guide retail to the money pit. This capital is also used to fund airdrops in almost a Web 2 style joining bonus. It funds market making, liquidity providing on dexes, stablecoin issuing, and even scamming transactions for fake volume and value locked, creating the perception of a vibrant trading environment. They are creating fear on chain, and in cases like Solana for instance, are funding all of these short-term growth strategies with its 7 to 8% yearly token inflation. Under normal circumstances, nobody would invest based on these conditions. They lower security, increase centralization, and sell it to you as the next big thing in blockchain. Users are being bought by marketing, using centralized chains but giving up the true benefits of centralization that we have in traditional systems that at least have customer service departments or aftercare when it all goes wrong. People are sold that this is where the real yield opportunities are, but don't realize that this is just coming from inflation. It's not sustainable, and in many respects the activities are highly susceptible to litigation and risking on security laws. VCs in America are using this model to effectively buy users and are extracting value from retail on a massive scale. Over time, through this process and greed, they have created a cabal against Cardano as a blockchain and as an idea. But unless you are bought, you cannot naturally hate Cardano, only if you have sold yourself. Cardano is growing and solving problems in an organic, sustainable way. It's carving out its own path from the ideals of Bitcoin. It doesn't have the capital or appetite to fast track this process by selling out to the US corporations, and therefore is being penalized. Still, this is the point of Cardano, remains steadfast in its approach to realize what crypto promised to be. The hype surrounding Sui and its rise to prominence across mainstream crypto provides more examples of how the large pre-mine, VC backing and centralized BFT model is being used to capture retail again and continue the value extraction process. In just the past month, nearly 27% of Solana's outflows moved to Sui, and the correlation to numerous influencers dropping the "Why I moved all my Solana to Sui" videos are no coincidence. Let's take a look at some of the VCs that are involved in both Sui and Solana. Remember when I said that it's the same capital revolving around these BFT protocols? First, Solana, we see VCs like A16Z, Coinbase Ventures and Jump Crypto, three of the largest crypto VCs. Then we head on over to Miston Labs, the dev team behind Sui. Here in their investors section, we see the same VCs, A16Z, Jump Capital and Coinbase Ventures. With this in mind, does it surprise you that the marketing behind Sui is so strong? Nearly 1.5 billion of the 10 billion pre-mined supply went to venture capital firms. Currently, there is over 8 billion Sui's staked, 84% of this is held by the founding team. With no lockup or legal guarantee, the founders control most of the supply and are effectively able to do whatever they want with them. While Sui seems to have some really interesting technology and aims for a deflationary currency with a fixed supply, the nature of its pre-mine, over-the-counter deals, and centralization of network operations are not the characteristics of a truly decentralized blockchain. So how can you participate in the Sui network? What does it take to become a validator and further decentralize network operations? Currently, we'd need approximately $60 million, that's 30 million Sui, in order to request to join the validator network set of 108 validators. Now, from my understanding, this isn't delegation, this is the initial requirement to make a request. Delegation can only happen after a new validator is permissioned. Even if it is the case that validators don't have to own but could attract this stake instead, the validator set is still on a permissioned basis, and to attract the delegation to this level from scratch is a resource-intensive process. While I understand there is a proposal being put forward to reduce the validator requirement to around 2.4 million Sui, around $5 million, you can still see that this isn't designed to be a people-run decentralized network. Ultimately, Sui has rich validators, a high barrier to entry, and is extremely centralized. This is not in the image of the American dream. Remember when I mentioned key opinion leaders being part of this VC extraction machine? Looking through the Sui validators provides a great example of this. We have Nansen, one of the largest on-chain analytics platforms, founded by Alex Svanovic, a KOL in the crypto space, also backed by VC A16Z, with a 36 million Sui validator stake. I think this is a great example of how key opinion leaders are incentivized participants in these kind of networks. In return for their over-the-counter or on and off-chain marketing deals, are paid to promote the VC chains and actively avoid the likes of Cardano. Prominent key opinion leaders and VCs all have this in common. They either avoid talking about Cardano or do their best to sell you that it's not going anywhere as a blockchain. It seems VCs and US corporations are using multiple chains to implement this value extraction process, moving from one to the next, rotating capital and capturing retail each time. They're doing this not only to rinse and repeat a lucrative profit extraction, but also to stretch the resources of regulators. The more chains they back, the harder it is for regulators to get a handle on this industry. This is why we have thousands of cryptocurrencies. These US conglomerates that have so much wealth, we even see examples of these entities fighting regulation back by suing the SEC in return. We question things like how Sui already has USDC integration, only to find Circle listed as a VC investor. The pre-mine is so high that you don't need adequate transaction volume, just overpay for the integration, or better still, make an insider deal with the USDC VC arm. Check the daily Sui transaction stats at Sui Vision. Very strange inorganic spikes. In fact, the level of transaction that they are claiming is ridiculous, and crazy how anyone would believe that this is real in such a short period of time. This game is rigged and in the favor of the rich. The only antidote for this is organic decentralized growth. This model that we discussed of a high pre-mine, inflationary currency, VC backing, smart marketing of super fast centralized BFT chains, rotating the same capital is the ultimate fake it until you make it, or never make it at all but still get rich scheme. These are the true ghost chains where users are bought or faked. Remember, in this model, you will always be a user that is owned, not a user with ownership in the network. If enough people do not start caring about decentralization and continue down this path of corporate-owned networks, we'll be back to where we came from. Just like in traditional systems where corporations pay for user transactions and joining bonuses, using blockchain technology, they are not innovating but recreating the banking system. Zero-fee, fast centralized chains with VC and TradFi liquidity eventually leads to the cryptocurrency being worthless with no functional utility. There is no staying power in these VC chains because long term they're not producing valuable coins or communities. These BFT protocols are doing the same in crypto. Transactions will be free, and in fact Base and Sui already have feeless transactions. Come and enjoy free transactions and bonus airdrops while we use you as exit liquidity. Blockchain technology was designed to be decentralized, permissionless, censorship resistant, and highly secure to combat, or at least offer an alternative to the centralized structures we have in the traditional world. We are now seeing these same structures emerging in these corporate-owned centralized networks. I'm not saying don't participate, just get to know the system you're interacting with. In the context of what we discussed today, it's clear Cardano has a tough fight ahead. As a blockchain, it can't compete in terms of the capital with these VC-backed chains. Maybe Cardano misjudged some things like how educated people would or at least be prepared to become in terms of the technology itself and importance of security, or the size of the pool of users who actually care about decentralization over the only up mentality. Maybe Cardano also misjudged the impact of regulation and how these VCs can just spin up as many new chains as they like, to the degree that regulators don't even have the resources to control it all. However, Cardano is a very deliberate project in its design architecture, development roadmap, and token distribution. Cardano is intentional, building from scratch, avoiding these over-the-counter VC deals with a conservative pre-mine. Its ICO was launched in Japan, away from the US market, and people forget Charles used a lot of his own funds to finance the project. This is important from not only a US regulatory sense, but how it contributed to bootstrapping a community-run network that has been built up with shared values and a long-term vision. It's pretty much been Cardano versus the rest of crypto since taking a research-driven approach to blockchain development, focusing heavily on decentralization and preventing US corporations and VC firms from participating in its ICO. Outside of Bitcoin, it's one of the very few, if not only, cryptocurrency attempting to build an organic network effect that has staying power and is based on solid technological claims that can be proven. This shouldn't be ridiculed or suppressed, but celebrated and certainly not overlooked. Instead, a powerful conglomerate of VCs continue attacking Cardano through key opinion leaders, fake narratives, and by implementing the extraction model discussed. It's always been a rigged game, and the VC chains were always destined to succeed, at least in the short term. But in opposing them, Cardano has been built with integrity, and it has all the ingredients to succeed irrespective of these VC chains doing their thing. It's about what system you want to be a part of, and which one actually has longevity built into its DNA. Where Cardano didn't have the VC backing, it's had to grow organically and be more resourceful in how budget is spent. It's largely penalised for this from both outside and from within parts of its own community. What it has done is enabled Cardano to continue solving problems and evolve in a more sustainable and calculated way. This approach has largely cultivated an incredibly strong, capable and dedicated community that surrounds the blockchain today. This is something even VC money can't buy. While these BFT protocols are seemingly winning on scalability, speed, and retail adoption, Cardano is light years ahead in terms of foundational technology, decentralization, and community. Something being overlooked is the reasoning behind why Voltaire, Cardano's governance implementation, has been prioritized before scalability. Cardano has a beautiful base in terms of its technology, community, and level of decentralization, but is trying in a sense to buy enough time to sufficiently decentralize to counter industry regulatory pressures. The implementation of governance not only unlocks the collective capabilities of its entire community and adds more value to the chain's utility, it crucially further decentralizes power, making it extremely defendable from a regulatory standpoint. In a truly people-owned and governed decentralized network, who exactly do you sue? Effectively, when you achieve this type of decentralization, you secure the network's future. To some extent, Cardano had to take a step back from scaling to implement governance in order to survive longer. How long to sufficiently decentralize is a subject that's already created a conflict within the regulators themselves. Some say decentralize immediately, others say within 5 years of a project being launched. If so, technically, we are already too late, so you can see the importance of decentralizing as fast as possible. Like Bitcoin, Cardano is working towards securing that organic growth in network effect, staying relevant. It's a multi-year strategy, staying around for a long time, not come and go like the wider space. Bitcoin and Ethereum have proven to have that staying power. Cardano is not far off, 7 years around the top 10, so it definitely has some Lindy effects, but we need to continue decentralizing and solidifying that staying power. Like I mentioned, it's not all about winning, it's about not losing. Cardano can still be an enormous success without being number one on CoinMarketCap. Despite being somewhat suppressed, to achieve what Cardano has technologically, socially, and in terms of its presence in the market is extremely impressive considering how it's been largely as a result of organic growth. This is a crucial indicator of what the future likely holds for this project. Cardano was created in an egalitarian way to combat the failing of the American dream. It's a contrarian movement. Blockchains as a business are just conglomerates supporting each other in completely non-transparent ways, where the rich get richer and users are owned, therefore disposable. What Cardano offers is a truly people-powered decentralized network built on robust foundations and with the best-in-class upgradable technology and a community consistently providing valuable contribution. Being permissionless and decentralized, anyone is free to participate in the network and in multiple ways. You can start a stake pool with zero pledge and an extremely low startup and running cost, attracting delegators through hard work and merit to organically grow a pool and contribute to the further decentralization of the network. Or become a D-Rep and participate in governance, attracting delegator voting power based on your profile, values and expertise to really impact the evolution of the chain through voting and proposal submission. All users can delegate their stake in a completely non-custodial liquid staking environment, earning rewards while always retaining the ownership of their assets. Better still, being liquid, stake your ADA and interact with DeFi applications simultaneously. We have a deflationary hard-capped currency with real yields from staking and a variety of DeFi opportunities. True on-chain activity and programmability. This is better than the American dream, a permissionless, ultra-inclusive, highly decentralized and secure network waiting for your participation. Factoring in its approach to research-driven development, design architecture, initial token distribution, roadmap, and reliance on its success resting on a decentralized, organically grown community, Cardano never deviated from its principles and very existence stands in opposition to the direction the industry as a whole has decided to pursue. Cardano may not be winning in a superficial vanity metric sense, but it's certainly winning in future-proofing its network to stand the test of time and overcome the immense hurdles this industry faces if it's ever to realize mass adoption. For now, keep it sapient, keep it blockchain, and keep it Cardano.